Hello, I'm Alan Bojorquez, and I'm a lawyer in Austin, Texas, in the United States, where our law firm represents local governments, primarily cities and some counties. And I appreciate Professor Howard Balanoff and the Certified Public Manager Program, CPM program, inviting us to participate in this wonderful symposium being held in Morocco. I wish I could be there in person. Perhaps next time you'll invite me and I'll be able to come. But for now, I've made this video in case doing the webinar video conference version doesn't work. You have this video. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this. This is something I'm really excited about. Good government is what's driven my entire career. But knowing that Europe has adopted these 12 principles of good democratic governance is kind of an exciting new twist for me when I look at how my cities and clients behave here in Texas. And I'm happy to share this with you. Perhaps it'll inspire you to take a look at how government is handled in your area, and you can borrow some of these lessons and make them your own. The European label of good governance excellence is something that the Council of Europe has adopted through the Center of Expertise for Local Government Reform. And it's a form of certification program, an awards program. Municipalities can apply for this recognition, and they're being held against a pre-established benchmark. And the benchmark is built around these 12 principles that I think all of us will agree are good things for the government to try to do. And can we work in policies, procedures, customs, traditions, regulations to further these 12 principles will be furthering the cause of government at the local level. And I think this is something that is definitely worth striving for. Earlier last year in October, I had an invitation to speak on government lawyer ethics for a group of municipal lawyers from the United States, Canada, Germany, Switzerland, and Italy. And we convened in Italy. And in trying to discuss ethics for lawyers for an audience that was half Italian, I focused on these 12 principles because some of the principles are directly applicable to what we lawyers do when we represent governments. And the audience seemed to think this was exciting. Some of them worked for cities that had received the European label of governance excellence. And so they knew exactly what I was talking about. And so because that worked well in October in Italy, I thought I would try it for this group in Morocco. When you look at the 12 principles, they may seem pretty obvious, but this is a good configuration of things we should all be striving for. Participation, representation, and the fair conduct of elections. Government should be responsive. I think we all agree government should be efficient and effective. What about openness and transparency? In 2025, there's never been a more open, transparent part of government. The rule of law, being a lawyer, that's my training and background. That is something I absolutely am dedicated to. And as a lawyer, we take an oath of office to uphold and serve the rule of law. Ethical conduct is important. Lawyers have to ascribe to our own rules of ethics, but all other government officials should also. We hope that those that serve our local governments are competent and have the capacity to serve. We should be welcoming innovation and open to change instead of just doing things the way we've always done. Sustainability and looking at the long term. Not all of our citizens, our residents, our property owners are thinking 10, 20 years ahead, but those of us in public service should be doing so. Absolutely, sound financial management makes sense. And of course, a commitment to human rights, cultural diversity, and social cohesion is a strong movement worldwide. And finally, accountability. So if you can agree for a moment that these 12 items are good principles for us to follow, we'll try to explore them in a little bit more depth. And of course, I'll be doing this from the perspective of a lawyer who represents local governments in Austin, Texas, in the United States. Now, I have searched, and I admit it's not a thorough, exhaustive search. I want to know where are the 12 principles of good democratic governance adopted by the United States of America, and I can't find it. Not yet. I don't know that we have agreed upon those types of benchmarks that we can hold up and grade or judge our local governments according to. What I did find is that nationally and here in Texas, there are many awards that are given out by state and national groups, whether they're government groups, journalist groups, universities, nonprofits, or corporations, that do, in fact, highlight some of the 12 principles. In looking here in Texas, just at our cities and the law that applies to our cities, I can find some support for the 12 principles in our state constitution, our state statutes, the rules of professional conduct, the ethical rules that govern the behavior of lawyers. We have home rule cities in some parts of Texas where the voters have adopted their own constitution called a charter that helps them form their own government and provides limits of power and grants of power. Not all cities in Texas have a code of ethics, but many of the larger cities do. And then other cities tend to adopt policies, practices, or have traditions that are furthering the 12 principles. So while we have some support for that in the United States and in Texas, I haven't really found where it's all been compiled into one convenient list like Europe's 12 principles. So starting at the beginning, we'll start with number 1. And so you'll see the European Council logo here, and that will mean that I'm describing for you what that principle is about. And then on a subsequent slide, I'll be trying to find some basis for that here at home in Texas. The first is representation and fair leadership. The key idea is that the voters of a community should be selecting the leaders for that community. We should have regularly scheduled voting opportunities. We should announce what offices are open and what propositions will be voted on. Can we tell the electorate when the elections will be held, what time, and where the voting booths are going to be? Are we making it up as we go, or can we have standardized procedures that are consistent with the forms that will be used to conduct the election and the equipment, whether you're using paper ballots, electronic voting machines, or something else? Open participation is crucial for democratic institutions, whether the voter is wealthy or not, male or female. Some jurisdictions are going to have limitations. Must you be a certain age to vote? Or must you be a citizen for a certain amount of time before you can vote? But otherwise, we hope that in our democratic institutions, we have open participation. The absence of fraud. People should be able to trust and have confidence in the electoral process in which they're participating and which selects their leaders. And in a democracy, decisions are made by the majority, but we have to look out for the minority and respect them too, so you don't have tyranny of the majority stamping on the rights and the opinions of those who find themselves in the minority, whether it's a minority political party, a minority race, ethnicity, gender, or those sorts of things. So with that being the first of the 12 principles, what do I see here in Texas? And here you have our shape of Texas and our red, white, and blue colors, kind of like my lapel pin. In Texas, we can see that all members of city councils must be elected, and their terms of office are 2 years, unless they choose to go to 3 or 4 years. Otherwise, we have alternating elections. And here is the legal citations that I found supporting that. So in Texas, it's the Texas Local Government Code and in our Texas Constitution. I provide those citations because I'm a lawyer, that's what we do, but also in case people need to fact check, to look it up online and see if they can read more about the topic that I'm citing here. Here in Texas, to be able to vote in a city election, you must be a resident of the municipality, a citizen of the US, at least 18 years old, not to have been deemed incompetent or incapacitated by a court, and not a convicted felon unless those charges were discharged. That's in our Texas election code. We have standard uniform procedures forms, and equipment in Texas, all provided by our Texas election code that cities, counties, school districts, state agencies must comply with. And that's codified in our Texas election code. So I think we're good to go with principle number 1. Principle number 2 is to provide goods and services and programs provided by citizens. That means being responsive. We who work in government should be responsive to the needs and requests of our citizens. That means our rules and our procedures are adapted to meet the citizens' needs. If the citizens have legitimate expectations of us in programs, services, then we should be able to meet those reasonable expectations and do so in a reasonable amount of time. To be responsive means we don't just sit and wait. We actually move forward and we take action. How are we doing in Texas? Well, I looked at several cities, including one I visited just this morning. The city of Horseshoe Bay says on their website that the city manager and department directors will meet often to ensure the city is meeting at peak efficiency and effectiveness for its citizens. The goal is to provide the best and most responsive service. Way to go, city of Horseshoe Bay. Up in North Texas, we have the city of Denison that says that the municipal clerk, the city secretary, believes in being responsive to all citizens. That's the way a democracy should work, with professional knowledge, enthusiasm, and timely service. The clerk's office is serving the citizens of today and tomorrow while preserving the records of the past. That's because our municipal clerks, our city secretaries in Texas, are the #1 record keeper at the city and required to be archive records for future reference. In the city of Alpine, city secretary says they strive to support, facilitate, and strengthen the city's government process, providing responsive customer service to our citizens and neighbors, and conducting fair and impartial city elections. So those are great value statements by 3 of our cities here in Texas that I think would satisfy the principle number 2, responsiveness. Principle number 3, efficiency and effectiveness. It's important under Europe's 12 principles that results are actually accomplished. We've moved the ball forward. We've gained some ground, but not at just any cost. We want the public's resources to be managed and expended responsibly. So money is definitely an object. You can't say money is no object. Some communities might be more affluent, have more resources, more wealth, more tax revenue than others. But the expectation is that government is not going to be frivolous. We're going to spend money to achieve results in an efficient manner. That outputs are measured and evaluated to enhance productivity so we can be better next year than we are this year. And there are routine audits to make sure we're aware of how resources are being spent. And if somebody is wasting money, there can be accountability for that. I think anyone who understands government or works for government would agree that efficiency and effectiveness are 2 worthwhile principles. How are we doing here in the Texas, United States? Well, the city of Dallas, the city where I was born, says in their code of ethics that public officials in Dallas must be responsible stewards of taxpayer resources. Way to go, Dallas. City of Houston, our largest city in Texas, says in their code of ethics that it shall be unlawful for any city official to use their official position or the city's resources, facilities, equipment, or supplies for private gain or for personal advantage, or attempt to use that position to give a special advantage to the official or to somebody else. That is a very common rule you will find in ethics codes, especially here in Texas. The city of Lubbock, Texas, where I went to college, says that for their Parks and Recreation Master Plan, it's a comprehensive long-range strategy for the creation, optimization, and maintenance of the community's assets. The plan does not focus on one particular park, but has a bird's eye view of the community's parks, recreation, and landscape, both today and beyond. So there is an example of a city in Texas having that long-term vantage point and looking years ahead. While citizens might be focused on today or tomorrow, we're thinking 10, 25, 50 years, 100 years from now. Principle number 4, openness and transparency. Citizens should have access to government data and government decision-making. It's not enough just to let them know what we're doing or what we've decided to do or how we're doing it. More and more in a democracy, citizens are wanting to know why. Why are we doing this? What purpose does it serve? What alternatives did we consider? What was the process for getting to this answer? Democracy is not an outcome. Democracy is a process. So if you're going to comply with principle number 4, you need to make sure that information on decisions, the implementations of policies, and the results are made available to the public. They can see the records, watch the video, listen to the audio recordings. Public access to all information that is not classified is for well-specified reasons provided by the law. And so yes, because we are the government, sometimes we become in contact with people's personal, confidential information, sensitive, proprietary business records, health data, financial data. We have law enforcement, hospitals, ambulances, fire. Some of that information we need to safeguard, and as custodians, we need to protect it and not release it to the public. Otherwise, all data that is not classified needs to be released so that people understand what their government is doing and why they're doing it. How are we doing in Texas? Well, we have the Texas Open Meetings Act, and we've had that since about 1974, which says all city council meetings must take place where the public can view them. So the city council must act in a meeting, and the meeting must be public, meaning citizens are notified where's the meeting going to be, when is it going to take place, what time does it start, what's the city council going to talk about. But then the public is also allowed to attend. They're allowed to watch, they're allowed to listen, and they're allowed to speak, to thoroughly participate in that meeting. And that's our Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. We also have the Open Records Act. Some call it the Public Information Act or the Freedom of Information Act, but basically it guarantees the public a right to data with certain exceptions: financial information, health information, maybe some law enforcement information. Are we buying or selling real estate? But the clear majority of what the government has is something we have to hand over upon request. And that's in our Texas Government Code, Chapter 552. And finally, we don't talk about this a lot, but there's records retention. We have the Local Government Records Act, which says cities, counties, school districts, state agencies are required to hold on to records. We can't shred them, burn them, and delete them at will. We have to have a schedule that says how long we're going to hold on to things. For example, email, electronic mail, we have to hold on to it in Texas for at least 2 years, sometimes longer. And so we have to build up the storage capacity, the server capacity to store those records so we can provide it when people want that information. Rule of law, this is my favorite. I'm a lawyer. Local authorities need to abide by the law and judicial decisions. Both rules and regulations must be adopted in accordance to the law and procedures that are provided under the law, and then enforced impartially, meaning we enforce the law against our friends, our neighbors, our enemies. We are objective and we are neutral. That is a principle that I dedicated my career to, and the service that I provide my clients is helping with principle number 5. So here in Texas, we have the city of Dallas says in their code of ethics that all city officials are to uphold the laws and regulations going beyond the letter of the law to protect and or enhance the city's ability to accomplish its mission. Because I'm a lawyer, I'm familiar with the ethical rules governing lawyers in Texas. Our ethics rules say that lawyers are guardians of the law. I love that, guardians of the law. We should get t-shirts. We play a vital role in the preservation of society. A lawyer should demonstrate respect for the legal system and those who serve it, including judges, lawyers, and other public officials. While it's a lawyer's duty to challenge the rectitude of an official action, it is often the lawyer's duty to uphold the legal process. Looking at a different profession, we have police chiefs. The city officials who run our police departments, our top law enforcement officers, have in their own code of ethics a section that says that police chiefs are committed to the fair and impartial enforcement of the laws. That is absolutely fantastic. We want that. We need that. It's not enough to adopt good laws if you don't have the fair and impartial enforcement of those laws. So I think we're doing okay with our Police Chiefs Association. Principle number 6, ethical contact. That's my other favorite of these 12 principles. I love talking about ethics, and I appreciate Howard Balanoff and the group inviting me to bring this to you today. The public good is placed before individual interests. So if you are in it for yourselves, your family, your business, public service is probably not for you. If you're going to work for City Hall, volunteer for a municipality, accept public service, we need to be putting the community first and our own personal individual interests secondary. There must be effective measures to prevent and combat all forms of corruption. That's at the heart of ethics and vital to the 12 principles in Europe. Conflicts of interest must be declared in a timely manner, and city officials must abstain, refrain, avoid from taking part in those decisions. So let's see how we're doing in Texas. We have many laws in Texas. For example, Local Government Code 171 says if a city official owns part of a business or owns real estate or owns stock in a corporation, and that entity comes before the city council for a permit, approval, a contract, the city official must first tell everybody what their conflict is, what their interest is, sign an affidavit, which is a sworn public document, and then abstain from deliberations, not discuss it, not vote on it. Very good. We have incompatibility, a rule that says you cannot serve 2 masters at the same time. We require public disclosures, financial forms regarding contracts and vendors. It's a crime in Texas if you learn information at City Hall through your government service that's not public, and yet you use that information for your own personal benefit. You can go to jail. You can also go to jail for bribery. Someone's paying you something of value, money, credit cards, services, gifts, in exchange for doing something or not doing something as a public official. We have limits on gifts. Unless you're receiving a gift from a close personal friend, family member, business associate, we say a gift cannot be more than $50, 50 American dollars. And you can never ever take a gift if there's an expectation that you're going to do them a favor through your government service. Abuse of office is a very broad crime in Texas. If you're using your official position to help someone who doesn't deserve it, or to punish or hinder somebody when the rest of the public would be just fine, you could go to jail for abuse of office. So we have many, many ethical laws in Texas that are meant to curtail bad behavior, thwart corruption, and enhance the public's trust in their government institutions. So good going, Texas. We're halfway there. Talking about lawyers, since I'm a lawyer, maybe there's some lawyers in your audience. When it comes to lawyers and ethical conduct, our code of ethics says that we cannot enter into a business transaction with a client if that interest is adverse to a client. So we must put our clients first. We cannot accept money, compensation, anything of value to represent a client if the money is coming from another client. So we have to be very careful who we accept payment from unless both sides are consenting. We can't work for the city if we're getting paid by a corporation to do the work for the city, unless both the city and the corporation consent, and that consent must be in writing. A lawyer cannot acquire a property interest in a cause of action, a lawsuit, a litigation matter that we're working on for a client, except for very few cases such as contingency cases. So if we're litigating a matter, we need to not have an interest in that lawsuit other than what the client's paying us, unless the client has agreed to give us a percentage of what they get from that lawsuit. So the rules are very detailed, but very clear in Texas about when our own personal financial interests can get all tangled up with our client's litigation interests or financial interests. Another rule for lawyers, we cannot represent a client if the representation involves a conflict of interest. That could be representing one client that's adverse to another client, or there's a risk that the representation will be materially limited because maybe we took a position for one client in one lawsuit. If we were to take a completely different position for a different client in a different lawsuit, that would create a conflict and we can't do it. And we might have to just quit representing both clients on that issue. And so we appreciate having those sorts of rules to help us walk the straight and narrow line. Principle number 7, competence and capacity. Professional skills of those who deliver governance must be continually maintained in order to improve output and impact. Fantastic, I love it. The Certified Public Manager Program, Howard Balanoff and Texas State University, our group is very committed to ongoing education, continuing education, training, training, training. Your symposium in Morocco is designed to help maintain and strengthen the professional skills of those who govern. That would be required if you're going to comply with Europe's 12 principles. Public officials must be motivated to continuously improve their performance. We can always do better at police work, law enforcement, fighting fires, regulating land use, taking care of our utilities, taking care of our elections. We have to continually try to get better year after year. We must have practical methods and procedures that are created and used to transform the skills into capacity and better results. So that's what we must strive for if we're going to aspire to and comply with principle number 7. Here in Texas, for lawyers, we have a lawyer must provide competent representation to a client. That requires legal knowledge, skill, thoroughness, and preparation that are necessarily reasonable for the representation. We must maintain knowledge and the skill. A lawyer should keep abreast of any changes in the law and in the legal practice, including benefits and the risk associated with technology and continuing ed. Boy, believe me, when I go to conferences, seminars, and symposiums with lawyers, the hot topic of the day is artificial intelligence. Can lawyers use AI, artificial intelligence? To what extent can we do so? What level of due diligence and background work must we use? What sort of trouble can we get in? So AI is a tool. It's probably a very beneficial tool. It can be a little bit of a scary tool, but as a lawyer, I'm required to learn about artificial intelligence because I am required by my code of ethics to keep up with technology. Well, it's good for all city officials to keep up with technology. And this is under the American Bar Association's Model Rules 1.1. And most of our state bar associations in the United States are modeled after the American Bar Association's sample ethical rules. Principle number 8, innovation and openness to change. New and efficient solutions to problems. So new and efficient solutions to problems must be sought and taken advantage of more modern methods of service provision. It's not enough to just keep doing things the same old way. It's not good enough to say, well, we've always done it this way, so we're just going to keep doing that way. Maybe that's appropriate in some instances, but we owe it to our citizens to evaluate, why are we doing it this way? How long have we done it? Is there a better way? Can we learn from one of our neighbors? Is it time to make a change? We can have pilot programs, experimental programs, so that we can learn, continually learn from the experience of others who maybe have been down this path before, tried this technology, tried this methodology before. Well, you want to build a climate in your government agency that is favorable to change. We can't be afraid of change. It is inevitable, and we need to find the appropriate times and ways to change so we can get better results for our citizens. Looking again at the Texas Police Chiefs Association, for an example here in my home state in America, the police chiefs say that members are dedicated to innovative and participative management at all times, seeking to improve their departments, increase productivity, and be responsive to the needs of their community. Fantastic provision in the police chief's code of ethics. I live and work in the city of Austin, which is the best city in all of Texas. And Austin has an office of innovation here in the city. They have a city staff. A member of my law firm left the law firm to go work for the city of Austin in their office of innovation. They collaborate with diverse partners to address complex challenges, design new solutions, and create equitable outcomes for our residents. They build pathways for the future and expand capacity for innovating. So if you heard of Austin, Texas at all, we're known for being a live music capital. We're known for being innovative. We're known for being very high technology, Apple computers, Dell computers, lots of technology moving to Austin. So innovation makes sense. That is a value that we have as a community, and we want our government institutions to also share that value. So I think Austin would have no trouble complying with principle number 8. Looking at principle number 9, sustainability and long-run orientation, isn't that just vital in 2025? It's not enough to do a thing and do it well. We have to ask ourselves, are we able to do this long-term? Can we keep doing this? If not, we're going to have to modify how we go about it. The needs of future generations must be something that we consider when we adopt current policies. Sustainability has to constantly be taken into account. And that doesn't just mean energy, the environment, natural resources, but it does include them. There can be tensions among environmental, structural, financial, economic, and social issues as it relates to those future generations. So because we're building parks and playgrounds and schools for our children, we need to build future communities for them to live in and work in and start families of their own. This is a very broad and long-term perspective on the future of the community. And when I talk to new city council members, mayors, city commissioners, right after they get elected, I challenge them not just to think about today or tomorrow, to think about what motivated them to run for public office. I challenge them to think decades into the future, because as our government leaders, they are in the best position to look ahead and start making decisions today that are going to serve our citizens long after we've retired and gone away. And to do that, we need to have a working understanding of historical, cultural, and social complexities. And City Hall is a great place to do that. In Texas, one of the cities that I serve is the city of Buda, Texas, and they feel so strongly about this, the City Council appointed a sustainability commission that is an advisory board to the City Council. And they look at all sorts of issues regarding sustainability practices, including environmental stewardship, social responsibility, economic development. They look at air quality, water, conservation, and protection of our natural resources. And this is a group that meets at least once a year with the City Council, where they get into the same room at the same time and talk about their goals, their efforts to make Buda not just a wonderful city to live in today, but a city for the future. City of Fort Worth, Texas, we call that Cowtown. I spent some time living in Fort Worth when I was a child. They have their own sustainability task force in Fort Worth, helping the city face challenges of adequate infrastructure and resources, a rapidly growing population, while trying to maintain the quality of life for current and future residents. Isn't that the name of the game? All of us in public service today, and I'm sure those of you assembled in Morocco, are going to want to take care of our citizens today and citizens tomorrow. And if you live in a wonderful, amazing community, you want to keep it that way, knowing that people are going to change and the community is going to grow. If your community is struggling, then you're going to want to improve the quality of life for your citizens, and spending that time working on those long-range solutions that will help you be healthy, breathable air, drinkable water, nutritious food. That is a challenge that government can help take care of. We may not be able to solve all the problems, but we can show some leadership and we can lead the way. And that's what principle number 9 is all about. Number 10, sound financial management. We're all dealing with limited resources, whether it's tax revenues, fees, grants, wherever you get your money from fines, penalties, franchise fees. We raise revenue in different ways in different parts of Texas, different parts of the United States, and certainly different parts of the world. But Europe's principle number 10 says that the charges that are spent by the government need to not exceed the cost of services and do not reduce demand. Prudence must be observed in the financial management, including the contracting, the use of loans, estimations of revenue, your savings account, how much money you keep in reserve for your rainy day fund. You should be looking at budgets or plans that are multi-year. Now, our state of Texas has a budget that's 2 years at a time. Most cities are required to have a budget that's at least 1 year at a time. But nothing stops our Texas cities from forecasting further in the future beyond just 1 year. Risk must be estimated and managed, and you must publish your accounts. Even if you're entering into public-private partnerships, or maybe especially if you have government agencies contracting with private corporations to provide services, build buildings, manage facilities, we need to predict what those risks are going to be financially and be able to forecast that and disclose it to the public. Local authority must make arrangements for intermunicipal solidarity, sharing of burdens, reducing risks. Sometimes we need to partner with other cities, counties, school districts, state agencies, our federal governments to help share some of these costs so that one particular group of citizens aren't overburdened. Well, here in Texas, state law requires an annual audit that looks at all the financial records of the previous year, money going in, money going out, and we are required to have a balanced budget in Texas. Our costs cannot exceed revenues unless we follow the law for issuing debt, municipal bonds, which are paid off over many years, and that has a great deal of state oversight. We must have our records and our accounts audited and a statement prepared, and that's by statute in our Texas Local Government Code. Each year, the budget officer must prepare a budget with the proposed expenditures and revenue. We can only impose taxes in accordance with the budget. And the budget is carved in stone until we amend it. So you pull out your hammer and chisel, and we can change that budget from time to time. But it's important to have a budget. You're required to have it in order to spend money or raise money in Texas, and we have to have that annual audit that oversees what we're doing, and that is a public document so that the public can see how good we're doing or how poorly we're doing at managing those public funds. Principle number 12, human rights, diversity, and social cohesion. Human rights must be respected, protected, and implemented, and discrimination must be combated. Amen. Cultural diversity is treated as an asset, not just something we have to do, something we want to do that's going to make our institutions stronger. We want our government agencies to reflect the citizens that we're serving. And we want to ensure that all of those who have a stake in the community feel identified and not excluded. To the extent we can do our resources and our programs to have social cohesion and integration of disadvantaged populations or disadvantaged parts of our communities, we should be promoting those, including those, and not make them feel like they're left behind. Access to essential services must be preserved and spread, including to disadvantaged populations. These are fantastic goals. Hopefully we're all working to do these sorts of things. In Texas, the city of Nolanville, a small city we represent, it's not very big, but it is a home rule city, which means the citizens voted to adopt their own home rule charter, which gives them their structure for government, limitations on power, and grants of authority. And I am so proud of Nolanville. Just a couple years ago, the voters approved this statement: no person shall be appointed or removed to any city position or administrative office or in any way favored or discriminated in respects to the city based on race, color, ethnicity, national origin, ancestry, their religion, their creed, their gender, their sexual orientation or their gender, their age, disability, political affiliation, marital status, or military status. Whew, I got to take a drink after that one. Wow, that is pretty progressive for a community that's in a more conservative part of the state. A lot of military veterans live in this community, but this proposition passed overwhelmingly and makes it the concrete law of Nolanville that sort of discrimination will not be tolerated. Again, in the city where I was born, city of Dallas, city officials shall not discriminate against any person based on race, color, age, religion, marital status, sexual orientation, gender identity, which is somewhat new in our consideration, expression, genetic characteristics, national origin, disability, military or veteran status, sex, political opinions, or affiliations. They put that in their code of ethics in Dallas, Texas, to which I say, bravo, bravo, Dallas. Now we're on the last of the 12 principles, accountability. Isn't this perfect to be last? Because it causes us to look back at the previous 11 and see, are we actually doing what we said we're going to do? Are we complying with the law? Are we going above and beyond? Principle 12 says that all decision makers, collectively and as individuals, need to take responsibility for their decisions. Decisions must be reported, explained, and sanctioned if we violate a rule or deviate from a norm. There must be effective remedies against maladministration and against actions that infringe on civil rights. And so hopefully your government agencies have some sort of methodology, some mechanism, infrastructure, rules, practices, procedures to hold each other, ourselves, accountable. Here in Texas, I came up with several that I think we have. What do we do to hold leaders and cities accountable? First and foremost, elections, the ballot box. If you don't follow the law, comply with your policies, values, give the citizens what they demand, you should be voted out of office. I'm a lawyer, so I get to deal with the courts. We have civil lawsuits and criminal lawsuits. Some city officials go to jail. Some get thrown out of office by a judge for violating the law. We have many, many state agencies. The state of Texas oversees cities, counties, school districts to make sure we're complying with the law, environmental law, utility law, election law. Our law enforcement, police officers have to comply with the law. We have a great deal of oversight. And frankly, the media, newspapers, television, social media, blogs. We have the traditional kind, and now we have the internet. Everyone who has an iPhone or a cell phone has access to some sort of news, and the news is always watching, reporting on whether we are complying with the law, maintaining our ethical values, and serving our citizens. And then all of us, we have neighbors, we have friends, we have family. And if we're abusing the public, we're wasting money, we're not responding to cries for help, they're going to hold us accountable. They're going to tell us that we're failing them. I'm going to be ashamed. I'm going to be embarrassed. And I'm going to turn around the next day and work harder to try to do better. So hopefully in your jurisdiction, your agencies have processes and procedures, laws, personnel to hold each other accountable, whether it's peer-to-peer or it's more formal in elections or in the criminal justice system. So there's several resources you can look to. I've given you a couple of websites to look to on the 12 principles of good democratic governance as approved by the European Council. I encourage you to look at them yourselves, read about them, and ask yourself, might these 12 principles fit into your organization somehow? Or can you tweak them or modify them just a little bit to fit what you do? Maybe you don't need 12, you only need 6. Maybe you want 24. No one's bound by these 12 principles. They're all voluntary, but maybe you can create some sort of certification. Maybe in Morocco, you already have an awards program or a certification program that recognizes these sorts of democratic principles, and communities, cities, agencies that put their resources to work in furthering good government. And if so, I hope you give those communities, those cities, those government agencies accolades and praise and acknowledge them for doing well and inspire them to keep trying, and maybe inspire some young people to go into public service inspired by your 12 principles of good democratic governance. So I took a final look around Texas, around the United States, to see what's a good sample of awards programs that we have. Some are by nonprofits, some are by corporations, some are by professional development groups, whether it's the National Civic League, talking about being an all-American city, or the International City County Management Association has local government excellence awards. Here in Texas, we have the Municipal Excellence Awards for Texas cities, Bloomberg for philanthropies, government technology promoting certain benchmarks based on cities using technology to provide better services, more responsive services, engaging their citizens. OpenGov has their high performance government awards. And so we have bodies, groups that are willing to recognize some of the 12 principles of good democratic governance. But I have not yet found someone that gives accolades for a broader group of those kinds of principles here in Texas or in the United States. Who knows, maybe someone will hear this talk, see this presentation and be inspired to help me set up some sort of comprehensive awards program. But for now, cities, counties, school districts in Texas can apply to some of these and see if they can get recognized for their efforts piecemeal. Well, that is it for my remarks, just shy of an hour. I hope that you found this information helpful, useful. Maybe you can apply it in your own hometown, in your own city, to further good government. I do work at the Bojorquez law firm here in Austin, Texas. We are Texas municipal lawyers, and we're proud supporters of the Certified Public Manager Program and all the work that Howard Balanoff and Marilyn Balanoff do. I appreciate them asking us to do this. I hope you found it useful and worthwhile. I wish you the best of luck. Thank you very much. I hope your symposium goes well. Bye-bye.